shine your light on.
Welcome to Las Vegas Tonight with your award-winning host, Dale Davidson. Dale interviews fascinating guests from top-ranked celebrities to people just like you who have an important story to tell. For more than 15 years, Dale has broadcast every week from the fabulous Las Vegas Strip. He finds the people who really make Las Vegas a one-of-a-kind city and lets the world know just what's happening in this remarkable town. You'll discover why 50 million people visit the entertainment capital of the world every year. Stay tuned for another exciting episode of Las Vegas Tonight.
Welcome to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host, Dale Davidson, and I'm blessed to be your host. Thank you for tuning in. You're going to be really glad you did. Jackson Crisp is with us. He's a fantastic guest, great backstory, and a very accomplished gentleman. Jackson, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, good to meet you.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
And people would never guess you once played in the NFL by looking at you. What else would you have done?
Right, I always say figure skating. They say.
That's great.
Yeah.
So were you a big kid in Cheyenne, Wyoming where you were growing up?
Yeah, so a lot of folks just, they don't, when I say Cheyenne, Wyoming, they're like, what is Wyoming? And then what is Cheyenne, right? Yeah, no, I was always a bigger than average kid.
Yeah.
So I think I was this tall in the ninth grade.
Oh my Lord!
And a few pounds less, but this tall.
Yeah, all of us were a few pounds less. And were you recruited in high school to be a football player?
Well, yeah, that whole story. It's a pretty unique story. So I was a three-sport guy. I did track, basketball, and football. Okay. And then I gave it a shot in wrestling my ninth grade year, where there was actually an injury that would come back to haunt me later on my shot in the NFL. You
got hurt, yeah.
But I was recruited out of high school, but I was recruited to, my goal was not to play football.
Yeah.
Right, I liked football and I loved it, but my goal was to use it to get a better education.
Oh, smart.
Right, and and the Colorado School of Mines was a top engineering school.
That's a great school.
Yeah,
I went to DU in Denver.
Okay, so you know.
I know Golden really well.
Yeah,
a great school, and there's a little beer company in that town, as I recall.
Yeah. We would do the tour all the time, every weekend.
Yeah, Coors beer.
The Coors beer. Yeah. So I knew that school was there, and the coach really wanted me to play. There were some challenges, though, because although I had a good GPA in high school, the standardized tests I didn't do very well on. And the School of Mines, they compete with Harvard regularly in engineering, and they beat them a few years in terms of ranking.
Oh, yeah.
And so their academic standards were just through the roof. And the coach really wanted me to play, and the thing was back then, the ADHD, everyone has it now, but back then it wasn't diagnosed, and there were really no ways to sort of help kids learn through it. So I was sort of self-teaching myself to do that.
Right.
And those standardized tests are very reading comprehensive. Right, so even the math and the science, you had to be able to read
word problems, long word problems
on a timer, right?
Yeah, right.
And so that was really hindering me. So it didn't really represent my intelligence or EQ, in terms of where it was at. And but nonetheless, I didn't hit the standards for Mines. So the academic professor or the academics at Mines actually didn't want me to attend the school because they didn't want to start a precedence of letting athletes in.
Yeah.
And so Marv Kay, my coach at the time, and a great mentor of mine, really pulled for me. And he got me the opportunity to go there on a full athletic scholarship, but I was under academic probation.
Right from go.
Right from the go.
Wow.
Right.
So you had to reach a certain point and all that sort of thing, which made it even harder, I'll bet.
Well, I actually respond. So that's one of the things that I've always done. I respond to adversity. Like someone says you can't do it.
Right.
I'm like, don't ever tell me can't or never, right? That's just sort of ingrained in me. And that's why I come up with great ideas and all that, because where a lot of people throw their hands up, I'm like, no, you can work it out.
Yeah, sure.
But I got there and I ended up getting a real high GPA. I think it was around a 3.8 that first year.
Wow. And they went, we were wrong.
And they went, we were wrong. And not only that, I earned a full academic scholarship.
Wow.
And I was able to give, yeah, it was pretty awesome because I wasn't expected to make it. And then I was able to give my athletic scholarship to another player.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so it was sort of
fantastic.
Yeah.
And how did you like Golden? It's a beautiful town.
You know, I loved Golden. I loved the coach. You know, Coach Marv Kay was our head coach then.
Yeah.
And now they have the stadium named after, the new stadium there.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So back when I played, it wasn't a football powerhouse. But now, believe it or not, it's they ranked top 3 in the nation, NCAA.
Right?
Yeah, and they made it to the semifinals.
Wow.
So they've turned that football program. I mean, it's amazing, and they have a new stadium there with skyboxes, and it's called Marv Kay Stadium.
Oh,
so
that's beautiful.
yeah, it's
that's
pretty cool.
Beautiful. Now, engineering is a tough major anyway.
Yeah.
What attracted you to that? Were you a science and math kind of guy in high school, for example?
Yeah, I was one of those guys that would always ask, how does it work? Right?
Yeah,
and keep asking those questions and drive the parents and step-parents crazy because they're like, oh, give it a, how do stars
take this
do
thing
this?
apart and put it back together.
And I would always tinker around.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I was just sort of naturally curious. And it's funny because later on in life, I discovered I didn't really want to be an engineer, a bit more of a project manager.
Okay.
With a technical background, right? I wanted to see the whole picture and put together the whole project and puzzle.
To supervise it all.
Supervise it all and make it work. And but engineering's still important in that because you need to know process and how things work and how things are put together. Yeah. So yeah, so that's sort of the direction I went. But yeah, I thought for sure I wanted to. I think when I was 5, I said, "Mom, I want to be an engineer and a football player." Right?
And you did both.
And I did both. So
you did both.
That law of attraction thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then who did you play? You played for the Jets briefly?
Yeah. So that was I wasn't trying to play football in the NFL. I was wanting to pay for my school. And now my school was paid for academically, and so I'm still playing football because I enjoyed it and my teammates. And I excelled at it. I went to the Division II All-Star games my junior and senior year, I believe. And the junior year when I was there, I did very well in that game. And then I started getting invited to go practice at CU. So drive over to CU and train with the guys
in Boulder.
A lot of the older guys that we might know, like Cordell and Westbrook and all that played with the Steelers. And Doc Crease was there, and so I'd go over there because we didn't have a strength coach and training program. You know, no favors. There was none of the stuff that big schools get, right? Nutritionists, strength coaches, and so when that interest picked up, I started going over there and training with them, getting close with the guys. And I got invited to a regional combine, right? And so after the All-Star game, I got on the scouts' radar because of how I performed. And then I was invited to that combine. And so I started working out with CU to sort of get ready for the combine because I think I was the second or third guy ever out of Mines to get a pro shot at that time. Right. And so there weren't any of that going on at Mines. So I was doing that there, and I went to the combine and I tested super high on the I think the top 1 or 2 or not one, but top 5 in the nation in terms of strength, speed, and size and vertical jump and all that. So that's what gave me the real shot. And then when I tested real well at that combine, that's when all the buzz started happening and the articles and this kid from the School of Mines is going to get the shot for the NFL draft. And so it was a real exciting time for the school, right? And me.
They were now really happy.
They were really happy. Big time on it. And they
were brilliant all of a sudden.
So
we recruited this guy.
It was a lot of fun, and you asked how I got there. So that was a long process, and then so through the draft, I had got an agent. All this stuff I hadn't been
thought
about is all of a sudden being tossed at me, and scouts coming to the games now, and like everyone, to watch practices and the games and all that. So there was a lot of activity around that. And the draft day came, and I was projected third or fourth round pick that year. And which is amazing, going from obscurity to now competing with Division I, because of the combine I did.
There's hardly any Division II guys ever make it.
And especially on the board, right? So it was I was doing, I was working out with some of the Broncos at the time to sort of get used to the next level.
Right.
And anyway, so draft day came, and I'm at school at my fraternity house. There's a football fraternity. And, I think Marlon talked about this too, but draft day is a weird day for everybody because nothing goes how you think, unless you're just, there's certain people, but they're very rare. The draft day started, and they're going down, and no tackles are going. And
really?
This is the one year, I can't remember another year where just no offensive linemen were going.
Really? Yeah.
Because typically they're frequent because of their being, it's a position where you get hurt a lot.
Yeah.
And no one was going. It was just a really odd year. And so I talk about these little misses. Yeah. Like if I would have redshirted, and came out the following year, they all went.
Yeah.
Right. But that year is just a little miss. And so the third round came, the fourth round came, and nothing. Right. Mm-hmm. And then the linemen started getting picked up. Fifth round came, the Steelers coach called me because I had been practicing with CU and knew the players there.
Yes.
So the offensive line coach called me and said, we're going to pick you up in the 6th or 7th round, son. I was like, yes, sir, coach. I'm ready to come play for you guys. And just like in the movies, the 6th and the 7th round came. They went with someone else on the board.
Oh, no.
Right. So that was my draft day. So it went from this hype to crickets.
Yeah.
And my agent called me right up and said, just hang tight. I'll give you a call back. And the next morning he called me and said, the Jets want to pick you up on a free agent contract. And it was little money, but it wasn't the big money. Just everything changes. When you get drafted higher, there's an investment in you.
Yes.
And so you're almost guaranteed a few years of development.
Yeah.
Right. Where as lower into the free agent spot, you're not as business invested because it's a business.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I went as a free agent to the Jets, and that's sort of my in from Mines to the Jets. It was a whirlwind.
Yes.
And happened quick.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. And you suffered a career-ending injury, right?
Yeah. So that little miss thing just kept happening with that whole shot. I got there. Came up to speed because I mean, imagine coming from D2 to this level with size and strength and speed and just.
And you were clearly smart, so you were learning the playbook.
I was learning the playbooks like this against the best in the world, and you're taking all the reps because you're the young guy coming in, so you're going against the first string, taking all the reps, and it was a great time, and I was very aggressive between the plays, but it wears down on you,
Oh, sure.
Going through camp like that. But so 2 or 3 weeks in, there's a spring camp, and you got to get qualified for the fall camp, right? You got to make it through to the fall camp where they cut down to the final roster.
Right.
And so spring camp, I got there and I started getting used to the guys and the speed
and what's involved.
And it's crazy. This in business and as an interviewer in your professional career, right?
Yeah.
When you start playing at those next levels, it's different.
How
did I ever play at that previous level?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. You don't ever go back.
Yes.
And so that confidence started just stepping up. I went, oh my God, I could do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and make a career out of it. I was getting excited, making the friends. The coaches loved me, doing all this, and so there's a story. There's a sort of a gross story, but a funny story. Not too gross for the camera, but spring camp I'm going through, and we're in shells. That means just shoulder pads and helmet, but it's still full. I mean, it's pretty much full go. Everyone's competing for
hitting each other.
$1 million jobs, so there's not really walk through at that level.
Yeah.
And there was maybe a week or 2 weeks left of camp, and I got my hand up in. The tackle was the Marvin Washington, the defensive tackle.
Yeah.
And they don't like that when you get your hand in their face mask.
Yeah.
And he broke my hand.
Oh, he went like that.
It was on purpose. It was I'm not going to say that, but let's just say it was an aggressive move, and it broke this metacarpal, and I knew it was a clean break. I heard it snap and all that.
Oh, yeah.
And so I got back home, and I have the ice on it, and this finger's rotating in.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
So it's a clean break.
Yeah.
So I won't get into the details, but I would reset it every night, go to sleep, and then re-break it the next day.
Oh,
because I didn't want to report it.
You didn't want to tell
Didn't want to report it, and then I got through camp and I made it to the fall camp. So that was a good part. The other good part is when I got home, the doctor said, "You're crazy for doing that," but it worked out. All that re-breaking did a good calcium thing, and it's probably stronger than it was naturally. So,
really? Wow. Yeah. That's incredible.
So I talk about, sometimes the pain makes you stronger. Literally.
Like life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Jackson, we need to take a brief break.
Okay.
We're going to come back, talk a little bit about Wyoming and what growing up there was like.
All right.
And then more about your career, which is really impressive.
All right. Thanks.
Jackson Crisp is our very special guest. We'll be back with him right after this. Hi, I'm Dale Davidson, host of Las Vegas Tonight. You know, radio has an enduring place in the heart of America. Sometimes it's music that can enliven your spirit or keep you company when you need some. More often for me, it's just been the right spoken word or two that can quiet my mind and soul. Radio brings me a reassuring word in the quiet of night or a welcoming voice early in the morning as I shake off the night's sleep and find my way into God's purpose for my day. And always, I find the best radio station is the one that brings me the best news, the gospel of Jesus Christ. My favorite radio station is KKVV in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's still right where it's been for years, at 1060 on the AM dial, hovering over Sin City like a gospel airship, broadcasting the good news of the abounding love that Jesus Christ has for every single one of us. No matter who you are or where you live, you can receive God's Word via the KKVV Gospel Airship. Just go to kkvv.com and click on Listen Live. KKVV is using all the tools that God's provided them, like podcasting and video streaming and video on demand, to produce programs that lift up our fellow believers and save the lost. If you feel a calling to speak to others about Jesus Christ on your very own show, pick up the phone and call the station. They'll be happy to tell you how. Call KKVV today at 702-731-5588 or drop them an email at kkvvradio@hotmail.com. Please join me in becoming part of the KKVV family. You'll be glad you did. Welcome back to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host, Dale Davidson. My guest, Jackson Crisp, gave us a fantastic first segment. And if you're watching this on social media, rewind, watch it again, because it was fantastic. And he's going to do the same thing in 2. Live up to that.
He makes it easy.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We were talking about motivational speaking. I want to pick up on that for just a second. I know you do some. Mm-hmm. You say not as much lately because you're an inventor and you're working on inventions, but it's a different life, isn't it? It's a little bit like professional sports in the sense that the adrenaline rush hits you the minute you get there, and then you try to do your best to live up to what the crowd expects. But it's really a great thing, isn't it? Don't you love speaking?
That's why I got into it.
Yeah.
Right. And I've always been a speaker my whole life.
Have you?
Yeah. Even the few events I went to before I got into the industry, people are always saying, "You should be on stage. Why aren't you on stage?" And I was like, because I like to teach and I like to inspire just naturally. Right. And so I was just like, I love it. And the football thing, we can maybe talk about that later. It didn't end before the traction got started. It was over. But that adrenaline you get through football, and just everything involved with it. You don't ever forget it. Right.
That excitement.
It's that excitement, that adrenaline, just that rush, that natural high. And the only thing that's got me close to that is when I get done on a stage speaking to people.
Public speaking.
Or,
that'll do it.
You know, and I'm just like, you know, that could be the, and I can always change my topic.
Yes.
Right? I could change the people I talk to.
Yes.
I can sort of control that a little bit. And I went, yeah, this is what I want to do for the rest. I don't have to beat my body up, right?
That's
and
right.
I can still get some of that adrenaline. So, yeah, it was a natural fit in terms of inspirational, motivational. And I even do SME, subject matter expert types of talks related to engineering and project management and systems.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Like that.
Let's go back to your childhood for just a second. What was it like growing up in Wyoming? It's a sparsely populated state. It's a beautiful state.
Yeah, it is.
I almost went to Cheyenne to work when I was with the Associated Press. And my guest tomorrow, Shalene, back to Marion, is from Cheyenne, and they own a TV station there. So
that's
a small world.
Yeah, big time.
So anyway, what was it like?
Well, I always like to say, because people don't really, Cheyenne's one of the bigger states, and we have the population of Vegas.
Yeah.
Right, in the whole state.
The whole state.
The whole state.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty incredible. A lot of land, and there's lots of beauty in it. You know, people just think westerns and flat, some tumbleweeds and all that. There's that too, but there's beautiful mountains. Yeah, and just a lot of land.
Grand Tetons and Jackson Hole and
Yellowstone Park.
And, it's magnificent.
The Black Hills.
Yeah. And were you an outdoors kid?
You know, I was in Cheyenne, so there's a huge mecca in the city of Wyoming, which wasn't big. But yeah, no, that's one thing I just couldn't imagine nowadays with these video games and these phones and all that. You know, I was always, whenever I had my free time, I was always out in the weeds, messing around or doing stuff like that. And I just, I think it's so important to disconnect sometimes.
Isn't it though?
Yeah, and I think we forget that sometimes.
Yeah. Screen time.
By design.
Yeah, screen time is, you know, and you talk about ADHD, which you suffered from. I've got a son who's got it, and that is difficult. But you know, you combine that with screen time, and it's a bad thing.
Oh, and likes and the addiction. You know, there's some shows out on that.
Yeah,
that's all engineered. You know, so I always say guard your. Well, Les Brown says it too, but and I like the quote: "Is guard your ears to your mind." Right, and that basically you're just distractions, because there's always someone trying to put stuff in it that doesn't need to be in it. So I always talk about, you know, learn your boundaries and learn because we all get hooked. You know, we all get that sort of addiction and that rush from the likes and the
Yeah.
But you know, my younger days, there was some stuff. You know, I'm a biracial background with a black and white parent, and Wyoming, everyone says, well, did you have a lot of problems in Wyoming, right? And it was inadvertent. The stuff that was happening wasn't malicious, you know, as I got perspective on it, looking back on my life.
Yes.
And the values overshadowed that, just sort of how people were just genuinely good.
Yeah. They're good people.
Good people, and the school was a little difficult because I was running around with this. I couldn't focus for 2 minutes, right? My mind was always in the clouds, thinking of stuff, daydreaming.
Yeah.
You know, very creative and active mind, but just not a focused. and the class, you know, I did a lot of jokes and made people laugh and stuff like that. So the teachers told my mom, they're like, you know, your son's not college, you know, they would get on me. He's not college material.
I heard the same thing.
They won't, he won't, you know, be prepared for having him do these types of jobs. And my mom told me that. And, you know, there's key people in your life that sort of don't let that support you in not having that happen. But my mom, you know, she's just an amazing lady. So if she wasn't my mom, and anyone that knows her, she was a school nurse for a lot of these schools in Cheyenne.
Oh, okay.
Everyone she's just an angel on this earth, and she's helped. Yeah, she helps a lot of people, and just she couldn't tell a lie if she tried, right? And sometimes I'm like, Mom, don't say so much to the contractors, and you know, I'm trying to coach her on some of that because I'm just like, everyone's, you know, just come in neutral, but. Yeah, so that was, I was set up to not make it.
Yeah.
And in terms of schooling, yeah. And again, when I got sent that challenge and they told me that, it's like, oh yeah, watch. I just figured I figured out ways to learn.
Your mom told you that to motivate you?
I don't remember how that got communicated to me. She didn't directly tell me it.
Oh, okay.
She has a way of just sort of I'm making you grow without knowing, a silent coach, and I don't even think it was on purpose.
Yeah.
Right, to pull out the best.
Teacher.
And and
great teacher. Yeah.
Yeah, and without her, yeah, they're important. The moms are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great testimony for moms.
Yeah.
You moms out there,
Absolutely.
we appreciate you very much.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, with your engineering, math and science interests, did that begin to show up academically in high school, or did that just come later when you went to mines?
Yeah, it's going to sound horrible, but I never liked math.
Yeah.
I did it.
Me neither.
I did it because
that's way too left brain for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked the parts of engineering I liked were, and this is where maybe a little disconnect, is I thought I'd be inventing and coming up with new ways to do stuff. And
yeah.
there's engineering that involves that.
Yes.
But most engineering in industry, at least, is you have this little box that you get to make work right.
Yeah.
Right? And use all the math and science and
Yeah.
physics to make that thing work right.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't enough creativeness in it. If I had it to do again, I have a creative I think I would have done, more marketing or putting together campaigns or acting. I love acting. I dabbled in acting and always loved it. So, but the thing I never any regrets, because everything I believe happens on purpose, for a purpose, when it's supposed to happen, is that engineering taught me process. Right?
Okay.
And it actually probably helped with my ADHD.
Okay.
Right.
Because you had to focus.
You had to focus, and you had to go through steps to finish a problem, and so it sort of forced you to sort of bring stuff. I'm just coming to that conclusion right now, but I'm sure it did help with some of that, right? Because I wasn't going to fail, and so I had to figure out ways to make that work. Yeah,
everything was a workaround.
Yeah.
That's what my son experienced too.
Yeah.
He had to find a way to get the grades he needed to get to where he wanted to be.
Yeah.
And he did.
Yeah.
But it was tough.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really, a real focus issue.
Oh, it takes twice as long for, it takes, some people
studying.
just did it. Yeah. And you're in the school where they're not giving you breaks.
No.
There's no favors and all that. So I would, and I tended to do best in college during when I was in sport.
Really?
Track or football.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I think.
Why do you think that is?
Just all my time was structured.
Oh, I see.
I didn't really have mess around time, so it had to be very structured, and it sort of pulled that all in.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's a good argument for the value of sports.
Yeah.
I think it tends to focus men and women. And that's a good thing. Let's talk about project management and the oil fields, and you have a very impressive resume.
Yeah.
So you were in charge of one thing I read was like 36 square miles or something like that in California oil fields. How'd that happen?
So that was for Chevron.
Yeah.
When I was a project manager at Chevron. Yeah. So project management happened starting at Hewlett Packard.
Okay.
Right, and then I took some time off. After Hewlett Packard, there was a big old change where Hewlett Packard was acquiring, I won't bore everyone with it, but there was a culture change that I didn't necessarily like. It was feeling pretty unhealthy.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what, this is a time to take a break.
Okay.
And that's my first time I tried to do my own business.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Right, so I moved out to California and I started a wellness business. And did very well at it.
Good.
Training small.
You were coaching?
I was a trainer.
Okay.
And a life coach type of wellness type of thing, and working with executives and small businesses. And
and you liked it?
I loved it. I loved it, but I wasn't growing a team. So now in my business coaching, I teach on how to grow your brand and your team and do all that. But at the time, I was a one-man show.
Band, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that gets exhausting to some level. So I was like, you know what? I'll close this. I don't want my gap to get too big between my project management experience. So at that time, I stopped working on that business and went back into project management.
Oh, okay.
And worked for a company called ERA, AERA, which was the #1 producer in California.
Oil. Okay. Yeah.
And I started putting in big facilities, anywhere from 5 million refineries, water processing plants.
Wow.
Stuff like that.
And what did you like about that? That's highly complex. And not everybody thrives in that environment. No. But there was always drama.
There's always drama when you're dealing with all those moving parts, right?
Oh yeah.
And so I always say a good project manager you need to be an influencer, because it's mostly managing people problems. Yeah. Right, and so I love that part, because I typically get along with people and would pull out the best in them.
Yes.
Right, and then we're all in this together, and we would all
it's very interesting.
Make it work.
Yeah, you're right. It's very interesting because I was a sales trainer for quite a while, and influence skills are like #1.
Oh yeah.
When you are working with people that you have no direct authority over. Mm-hmm. And you're trying to get them to do something for you, right? That's not really going to benefit them. You really have to pull out all the stops.
Yeah, that's it.
And convince them that this is going to help them in some fashion.
Yeah, and the company and us. And
all of us together. Yeah. So you've taught some of that. Mm-hmm. And what kind of groups are you talking to when you're explaining team building?
Usually corporate teams.
Oh, okay.
I'm about ready to start, I'm putting on a program to start talking to project managers.
Oh, okay.
Right. Okay. To bring some of those skills and all that. So that's sort of the space I want to move into.
Okay.
And then I just talk with kids, and colleges and at events and stuff like that, because everything's a project.
Sure.
Right, when you think about it, everything you do is a project, and it should be approached to some level like that.
You start today, and you got to get
to be with the product.
Yeah, how are you going to make that all happen?
Yeah, and the systems in place to make it, and so it works by itself. So you don't have to, when you want to scale, it's not breaking.
Yes.
So you just have to think things through a little bit, and so everything's a project.
Yeah, and reproducible.
Reproducible. Yep.
A trainer, I think, really is most needed when they come into a situation where there are multiple teams and they can't work together. Mm-hmm. They're in silos, as we say, right? We'll talk about that.
The silos thing is a crazy one, right? Because you got to pull people, because they're protecting their
their silo.
Yeah,
that's right. You're not busting into my silo.
Especially when I did the government work. I mean, the silos were thick.
We want to talk about that.
Yeah.
We're going to take another brief break and come back with Jackson Crisp for our final segment. And we want you to stick around because it's going to be nothing but fun. We'll be right back.
Our world isn't perfect. Just watch the news. Evil is everywhere. Now, at the core of who we are, we all know and feel these things to be wrong. But why? Why do we agree that some actions are wrong? Where did we get our standard, the moral code that tells us good from bad? If we're creating it ourselves, free to choose what works for us, then that would make every action acceptable. Good and bad would be the same. Then people who commit heinous crimes wouldn't be guilty. They'd simply be doing what's right for them. And yet we say they're guilty. When someone murders an innocent person, it bothers us, enrages us. We hate injustice. Now, maybe we're in a game of survival of the fittest. Suffering and death simply weed out those who aren't strong enough or lucky enough to have won the genetic lottery. But if that's true, why do stories of death and destruction draw up feelings of deep disgust and hurt inside you? Why does your heart break at the news of tragedy? And why do so many other people feel the same way? Could it be that there's something more? Some greater outside force that has ingrained you with the desire for love and goodness? Suppose there's a reason behind hating the evil in the world. Suppose it leads to something greater. Could it lead to hope?
And welcome back to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host, Dale Davidson. If you watched the last two segments, and I hope you did, you've really learned a lot about Jackson Crisp and his wide, varied experiences. And he's really a good guy. Let's talk about foundation work. That's a little bit different, the nonprofit world.
Yeah.
How did you get involved in foundations?
So that's a crazy story. So no one really knew about my football background. Besides looking at my size, I'd always get the assumption that I played football. But I never really talked about my experiences.
Yeah.
And I got here to Vegas, and someone invited me to an NFL alumni event.
Okay.
I was like, oh, they have NFL alumni events? What is that?
Yeah.
So I ended up going to this thing, and that's where I met Marlon.
Okay.
Right? And we just hit it off. I was like, oh my God, my brothers have come home, right?
Yeah.
Like in terms of just,
because there's
he's an amazing guy, and just the guys there, it was like instantly, it's like a brotherhood forever.
Oh yeah, sure.
Right? And you have the different personalities and all the crazy and the cocky and all that, but it's a brotherhood.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, oh, this is amazing. And so I got more involved and started helping Marlon out. At the time, it was Lyndon King. He's a Raiders alumni.
Oh, okay.
I was helping them out. I became a member, and they asked me to be on the board of directors right away. And so I kept helping them out.
Right.
And another friend of mine through my speaking channels, so I'm on the board of directors for the NFL Alumni Vegas.
Right.
And another friend of mine through the speaking channels was just starting a foundation, or not just starting it, but growing it in the United States.
Right.
So she was doing work overseas.
Okay.
Called Unsilenced Voices, and she talked to me about helping her grow on this side, stateside. Okay. And sort of growing the whole program and helping her with that. And it's called Unsilenced Voices.
What's that about?
And it's they fight human trafficking and domestic abuse.
Okay.
Worldwide.
Okay.
Right? And so pretty dark subject. And with COVID was happening, all those numbers just took off.
Yeah,
and people didn't realize that. Everyone's at home, and the people that were trapped were more trapped, and all that. So I said, absolutely, I will come on board and help.
Yeah.
And so I started off again quickly as an advisor, and then right into board of directors on Unsilenced Voices.
Okay.
And what I always challenge people to do is, if you have the means or the influence, use it for good. Yes. Right, where you can, and not expected, but the world needs it.
Boy,
and typically most people pour into that.
Yeah.
And so the football guys just all have huge hearts. The retired guys, some of them are very broken, and some head injuries and stuff like that. Always a huge heart. Yeah. And so I've always been a protective guy as a tackle.
Yeah.
It also translates into life, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, let's take the alumni and amplify Unsilenced Voices.
Okay.
So I asked some of the guys on the NFL alumni side if they would come in and pour into our first fundraiser.
Wow.
Right. And then we got some high-level speakers to come to it, and it was an amazing show up to her first fundraiser. And I think we ended up raising in a day over $100,000 or something, right, to launch this thing.
That's huge.
Yeah, and then Michelle's just been kicking butt since.
Wow.
And
what's your last name?
We've been Michelle Jewsbury.
Oh, okay.
With Unsilenced Voices. So Unsilenced with a D, unsilencedvoices.org.
Okay.
If you guys want to go pour in, it's an amazing initiative.
Yeah.
Just recently, I did step down because we actually grew massively. So I'm now an advisor for them still.
Okay.
But but they're growing and bringing people on board. So hopefully it'll be $1 million foundation, after this year.
That's great.
All within a couple years.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, she and the team and are just kicking butt.
Have you thought about starting your own the way Moreland Greenwood has?
Eventually, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that's the other. I also pour into Marlon's foundation.
Yeah,
so
I know you do. Yeah.
He does those free camps and all that, and we utilize the NFL alumni
for kids. Yeah.
For Shield. Yeah, for the kids, kids camps, and that's mg52.org. So free camps. Yeah. And he's working on the projects that you guys talked about, so I'm pouring in with that, helping him wherever I can with that.
Right.
And the alumni helps where they can with that in terms of some cross-branding and all that, and helping that initiative. So,
wow.
Yeah,
well, they're lucky to have you. You're a smart guy and hard-working guy. Yeah.
Well, that's what happened with the NFL alumni Vegas chapter is we were doing stuff. Right. And the guys sort of liked the speaking presence and all that, so they decided to vote me into. Lyndon stepped down, retired as president. So Marlon got voted into president, and then I got voted into vice president.
Congratulations.
So this guy that had a sort of a rapid ending, picks back up at the this stage in life again as a contributing officer there. So that's pretty cool.
Well, that's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Yeah, right.
Isn't that what they say?
Yeah.
And that really is true. Yeah. That really is true.
Definitely an honor.
Let's talk about the future. You've got so many things going on, which is great. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to be?
So, I want to step into, like I said, more speaking, inspirational and motivational speaking.
Right.
I want to write, I need to finish, I've been a contributing author and to some books, but I want to get my own story on
autobiography,
get it down, in terms of some work there. And then I have this, I want to keep pouring into these foundations, right, and raising the vibration there however I can. And then, so that keeps me busy. And then I'm also working on, so I'm an inventor.
I wanted to ask you more about that. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your inventions, the ones you can talk about, because I know you have some you don't want to give away everything.
Well, I also don't want to bore the hell out of everybody because there's this processes and all that get a little nutty. But no, I've been an that's just me. I'm always, I just see things, and when they say a light bulb flash.
Yeah.
I literally, when something comes to me, it's a
like a
flash,
startled thing.
You see it, boom, like a flash. And so I've just always, I used to not been so good at it lately because I'm too busy, but I used to just write down just thousands of ideas.
One after the other.
One after another, multiples a day.
Yeah.
Right, and then every once in a while, one would be a winner, and I would put it through and write up specifications to start working. So I actually, my patent attorney, I've been working with him for probably 10 years. And so
he's gotten you some patents, right?
Yeah, we've gotten some patents. So I'll work on the spec to try to keep costs down because they're expensive.
Yeah.
He's not cheap.
Yeah.
No, but so I'll work on specifications and then he'll work up the specifications and the claims.
Oh, I see.
And so there was one I just recently received. I started it back in 2010.
Takes a while, doesn't it?
Well, it doesn't take that long, but what I was doing was just kicking the can down the road. I just kept filing application to keep that string alive.
Oh, okay.
And then 2 years ago, when right before COVID hit, I said, you know what, I'll go ahead and apply for I'll actually prosecute it and try to get a patent. And we did. And so that was pretty exciting. And
Congratulations.
And so it was a pretty big one. I'm now running against some time. The thing with patents is there's these timelines that once you start it, you're constantly on a race to just keep stuff current.
Okay.
And so I'm doing a lot of that now. So you asked me what I'm doing. So speaking, pouring into those foundations, a book, and then developing this. I'm developing an application. And I'm actually developing a pitch deck to find investors right now.
Wow, okay.
So if that takes off, and I get a serious investor, that'll take a lot of my time. to bring that.
Because you'll have to bring it to market.
To bring it to market and do all the work.
So we're going to see you on Shark Tank?
I was actually up for Shark Tank.
Were you really?
On a previous invention.
Really?
I actually have the infomercial. I can send it to you sometime. It's horrible. Horribly embarrassing. But no, I have a lot of friends. So through these networks, right?
Yeah, sure.
They're just mentoring me and getting me set up with a lot of.
Let's talk about networking for a minute. Give people out there, kids especially, a feeling for how important that is.
Oh, man.
You talked about mentors, several mentors in your life. That's crucial, isn't it?
It's beyond crucial. And there's actually, integrity, and then this aligning with heart-centered like people. You're not going to necessarily get along with all aspects of everyone, but you want to focus on the parts that you do get along with.
Yeah.
And the folks that can help you with what you're trying to do. And don't burn bridges. Even if you disagree with someone, it's not ever, go hit a leave and go lift weights or do something else, because you just don't know how that's going to affect you later on.
Yeah.
We've all done that, especially earlier on in our life, where
before we learn.
Yeah. Yeah. So just practice patience, and it's not going to, doing that stuff, just like with violence and anger and all, that's not ever going to help anything, Ever.
Yeah.
And so just learn those triggers and to bring yourself down and to walk away, and then typically you're always very glad you didn't do something ridiculous. Sometimes you say, I wish I would have said that.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
Yeah. Well, the biblical phrase is do unto others as you would have them do unto you,
Yeah.
And that's very helpful.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we've only got about 3, maybe 4 minutes left in the show, and I'm going to ask you a favor, prevail upon you. I know you're a man of faith, and you walk around with Jesus in your heart. That's your camera. Would you mind addressing the camera and talk to people, especially young people today, on how having faith, no matter really what kind of faith it is, and how that helps you in your life?
Yeah, so especially now, the world is hurting. We all know it. Sometimes we skate it and don't want to address it. We project stuff, but ultimately we see a lot of just not so good stuff happening. And the one thing I always challenge, I don't get into politics typically on my, when I'm speaking and all that, but we all know values. And just as hard as I believe exercise helps with our emotional mastery and how we handle stuff and being a better person, mentally it does. I also believe you got to exercise yourself spiritually as hard, and I think that's where a lot of stuff is lacking. So I would just challenge all the young folks out there and everybody to start exercising that spiritual part of yourself. It's super, super important. And then being not just tolerant, accepting of other people. If they're not hurting people, and their faith, whatever that may be, is helping them and helping the world, you want to support that. And so that's sort of how I live, and I feel like I live sort of symbiotically with the higher power and divinity, Jesus, God, universal power, whatever your definition is. And when you're living in that, you won't do wrong, and just err on the side of treating people good.
That's great.
So
thank you, Jackson. I think you really helped some people.
Yeah.
And I can tell just with the bigness of your heart that that's what you live. Mm-hmm. And you've been successful, and I think we're gonna see even more
I hope
as time goes by.
Yeah.
So please keep us in mind, and especially when you get your book done, come back.
Okay, can I tell them how to read?
Let's promote the book.
Okay.
Get the whole autobiography going on, and
all right.
By then you'll be world famous.
Do you mind if I tell them how to get?
Oh no, please do.
Okay.
Please do.
So if any of the stuff resonated with you with the foundations, Marlins Foundation, MG, mg52.org, Unsilenced Voices, the Human Trafficking Domestic Violence Initiative, unsilenced with a D.org, or the NFL Alumni.org. Make sure you can reach me directly, or if you want to work with me or get in communication with me to pour in and help as a coach, a speaker, whatever that may be, you can always reach me at www.jackson.coach. It's very easy. I made it pretty easy for everyone to remember, jackson.coach. And with any thing involving any of those, and I can help you out.
I didn't even know that was a domain.
Right?
What a great idea.
It works.
Jackson.coach.
Because Chris, when I do Jackson Crisp, they're like, Chris, I get misspellings all over the place. It's like, Crisp, the P.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. God bless you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Jackson Crisp, ladies and gentlemen. Terrific guest and a wonderful human being. So please help him out and get in touch with him. And boy, he was a great guest. And I want to thank you all for watching. We so appreciate your support of Las Vegas Tonight. Feel free to go to my website, which is vegassaints.org. And as I try to recall each and every week to say, when it comes to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, please walk with him. God bless you.
Some mornings I get up, dark clouds are in the sky. All day the sun fails to shine. Then I think of that morning when I wake up over there in the land where no dark clouds rise. There won't be no need of the moon, no need of the sun. There'll never be no night. Heaven's gonna shine and a mansion will be mine. Jesus will be the light. Some mornings I get up and trouble's at the door. That trouble hides the light of day. Then I think of that morning when I wake up over there in the land where troubles roll away. There won't be no need of the moon, no need of the sun. There'll never be no night. Heaven's gonna shine and a mansion will be mine. Jesus will be the light. Some morning I'll get up in that land so bright and fair. The streets of gold are gonna shine, but the reason they'll be shining and heaven will be fair is that Jesus will be the light. There won't be no need of the moon, no need of the sun. There'll never be no night. Heaven's gonna shine and a mansion will be mine. Jesus will be the light. There won't be no need of the moon, no need of the sun. There'll never be no night. Heaven's gonna shine and a mansion will be mine. Jesus will be the light.
What is the Bible? What does it say? Why do people care about it? And what does it have to do with you? Christians claim the Bible was authored by God through human hands to share His story and help us understand who He is. It's a diverse collection of literature, including historical accounts, poetry, stories, and wisdom. It contains mind-blowing adventures like men being thrown into a fire-filled furnace. Yet they weren't burned. It speaks of an old man who is lowered into a lion's den, only to be supernaturally protected and not eaten. It also tells the story of a little girl who had died, yet miraculously came back to life. The Bible is one book that contains 66 smaller books. It was written over a period of 1,500 years and authored by over 40 different people that range from shepherds to doctors, scholars, farmers, and kings. Completed 2,000 years ago, historians say it's one of the most reliable books on the planet. Over 10,000 manuscripts have survived the centuries. Compare that to only 235 known manuscripts of Shakespeare's First Folio. There have been over 5 billion copies printed worldwide, making it the most reproduced book in the world. The Bible is divided into two sections, the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament is well known for its early history of the world and insight into life, giving wisdom such as don't murder and love one another. Other sections are a bit racy, such as your breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle. The first 4 books in the New Testament tell the story of Jesus through the perspectives of 4 of his closest friends. The rest of the New Testament is stories and letters revealing what Jesus' closest followers did after his time on earth. God used average people to heal all kinds of diseases and drive out demons. Many of Jesus' followers were killed because they dared to preach his message. Jesus claimed to be the human manifestation of God's unfailing love for humanity and the secret for true inner peace. He gave hope to the hopeless, love to the unloved, and then gave his life to bring never-ending life to everyone who would believe in him. That's where you come in. Beware, reading this book will change you. As you read it, its message of hope will come alive in you. That's what it's designed to do. Why not give it a shot and see for yourself what it says? It just might surprise you.
On and shine, shine, shine. Las Vegas, shine your light on me.
You've been watching Las Vegas Tonight with your host, Dale Davidson. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of our show. We so appreciate your loyalty to our program. To keep Las Vegas Tonight on the air, please go to our website, vegassaints.org, and click the Donate button. To send a check or money order, please make it out to Dale Wynn Davidson Ministries and mail it to 9030 West Sahara Avenue, Suite 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. To suggest a guest to appear on the show or any other suggestions or questions, write to Dale at dalewdavidson@yahoo.com or call him at 702-480-3989.